We optioned the book 7, 8 years ago, and it was a fascinating piece of forgotten history, but it was told from the perspective of the FBI. And we developed a screenplay soon after that. But there was a dynamic missing there that we ultimately felt that we weren't getting to the heart of the story. We weren't immersed in the Osage community the way we wanted to be. And there was 2 short sequences of Ernest and Mollie together, which was this insanely bizarre love story, something that was hard to fathom in a lot of ways, how this woman stuck by someone who was so duplicitous. But it was true. All of it was true. And so from that point on, we said to ourselves, well, what if we take the chance in getting to the heart of this story and the Osage community and this insane dynamic in Oklahoma at that time and what was going on, what if we made it about, Mollie and Ernest? And that was another 4-year journey of rewriting and once again going to Oklahoma to meet with the Osage. There was another chapter of development of getting even further into the truth of that story and trying to be as honest as we possibly could about the atrocities that occurred. But it was really, when we made that shift to it being about Ernest and Mollie and their love for one another, it opened up a whole new arena of ideas for us, and it took on a whole new life of its own.
One of the biggest responsibilities I felt about this role and the way that I had to occupy the space of Mollie was that I'm not Osage from the community. I have access points being Blackfeet and Nez Perce and growing up on the Blackfeet Reservation. We don't have something like the Reign of Terror, but we have our own history with not being able to manage our own finances for a time. With, a lot of the things that I think a lot of contemporary Native Americans feel and understand. But walking in, Indian country is an incredibly diverse place, and Osage country was foreign to me walking into it. And Oklahoma has a different history than Montana does, where I grew up. So I knew that because I had to be in this position where I'm, in a way, an access point for the audience to fall in love with Native women and to care about Native women in a really deep way. It's like the way that happens is I had to fall in love with everybody I was around. I had to fall in love with my sisters, and that was effortless. And also with a level, within the community, it's not my community, but I had to carry it as if they were stories from my family, as if I think that's kind of the root of empathy, and it's one of the reasons that I love being an actor, is you're serving as an access point for other experiences, and you're kind of broadening a cultural understanding of what it means to be human by doing so. So, yeah, I feel like there's no way I could really, really ever understand or truly embody what it would have meant to be an Osage woman at that time, because it's unimaginable, the things that this community had to deal with. And it's horrendous how erased it was. In early research with Leah, we were sitting down going through some of the court documents and the testimonies from this, and people were talking about the house blowing up. And in the documents from this and the court transcripts, they only talked about Bill Smith, the character played by Jason Isbell. There was no mention of Rita. And we were sitting there looking at these just court transcripts on, this very fragile old paper that we were being very, very tender with. And it's you don't necessarily feel like you're going to be moved by a court document, but I had to stop. We we had this nice system where, like, I was handing you pages and we were turning them over and being careful as we were both reading and everything, and then, like, you were kind of waiting for me to hand you the page and wasn't getting it because I was crying over the lack of Rita in this paper. So that kind of took me by surprise that I was moved the way that I was in that moment, but it made it so incredibly clear that me being in this role is a responsibility for this is a responsibility for this community that has been so erased out of their own history, starting with these court documents before any writer gets a hand on it, So it's vital that this history be explored that way, and I'm so grateful that Marty also, in addition to this being so, it's Killers of the Flower Moon, the book is there. It was also, the heartbeat of it was so shaped by a book written about this time from an Osage perspective called A Pipe for February by Charles Redcorn. And, I encourage people to read that because copy-paste, there's elements of that book that are very clearly in the movie in a very certain way. But the tone of that book and the sense of the relationships between the sisters, but in the community, the photographs that you see, the way that, the book invites you into what that perspective is, the way that the community invites you into what their perspective is. Because if you're there and you're receptive and you're open, they'll share it. It's you don't push too hard because we're talking about trauma, but people are willing to share and basically read A Pipe for February.